Sit. Sit. This is my buddy Rufus, and this is Rufus's roadmap to success. He's a little dog. All right, so basically, Rufus's problem is the fence fighting. It's one of the major problems. That's okay. And so the video above will kind of cover that. Make sure you practice that. When you practice that, I'd like you to practice that like about 3 or 4. Come, just like that, except for making him sit. But I'd like you to practice that about 3 or more times a day, and I would have about 15 to 25 treats each time you practice that. Now, one little addendum to that you can do is if you can cook, you can do it yourself, or I just go to Chipotle, get a thing of chicken, warm chicken. When he's out there, sometimes to get them to really pay attention, what I'll do is I'll just walk out, let him be out there and sniffing around doing his thing. And this is after your fencing is up to, it's secure. So go out there with one piece of warm chicken and walk right past your shrubberies right there, and just stand there like about 10 feet into the yard. And don't say anything, just wait. When he finally comes over to you, give him the chicken. You could click when he comes to you, but when he comes to you, just give him the chicken and say the word come, and then walk back in the house. Wait at least 30 seconds, grab another warm piece of chicken. Let's say that the first one, you were 10 feet past the shrubberies. Next time, walk back out. This time, walk 9 paces past the shrubberies and just stand there. Don't say, here, I got chicken, just stand there. And when he comes to you, give him the chicken and say the word come. And then come back inside. Wait at least another 30 seconds or longer. And keep repeating this. You won't get to the past part where you're just by the shrubberies. He'll just start coming to you every time that you go out there because you have the treats. Now, again, this is something where you'll have to get to because your fencing is not up. But I would work on that fencing, try to get that done the next week or two. Talk to your neighbors about, hey, I'd like to, the fence is kind of in disrepair. I'd like to pay and just put a little temporary fencing up myself. I just didn't want to take yours down without checking with you. I'm just worried that my dog's going to jump over, your dog's going to jump over, they're going to get their paws stuck. I got bit when that actually happened. Is that the fence that you got caught in, or was the wooden? Okay. And so, again, get that fencing. If you can't find it, message me. I'm happy to share a link with you of where you can get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. And again, the posts that are past, that are like kind of closer towards the back part, look at that post. That's the type of post you want to get. The stuff that's not the tin, because that stuff will bend. He's a big dog. If you get the other stuff, it's not going to bend at all. And so you can also do that on the other side of your fence. Talk to your neighbor over here and just say, look, I got these 6 foot tall posts. I want to just put one on your side of the fence, and on the other side of my fence, I'd probably, looking at that fence, I'd probably do maybe a 6 to 8 or maybe up to 10 of them, but I would do them probably in between the 2 posts. So the post and post, do it in the middle part, and just get it as close as you can on his side of the fence and on your side of the fence. And if you need some help, let me know, and I'm happy to share my guy Noah's phone number with you. He'd come and do that for you. That way it's all done. He'll do a really good job, and that way that fence is nice and sturdy. You do that, and then I use Done Right Fencing, who did a really good job for me. I think it would probably cost you maybe $200, I'm guessing, to put that little fence from there to your house, and they'll put it even with a nice gate and a latch in it. And I would recommend, if you do it, don't do a little one, do a pretty big one, so you can get a riding mower or anything back and forth if you need to go back there. But it would cost you $250, 6 foot nice privacy fence. Now your yard is secure, and that's going to make you feel a lot better. And if you can go out there and practice being out there relaxed, that's a nice way to burn some energy, play fetch, and all the rest of that stuff. Okay, we did talk about exercise, some creative forms of exercise. We don't have stairs here, so we talked about playing fetch. Remember, when you're throwing the ball, say fetch. When the dog picks up the ball, say fetch, and then hold the treat out here. When he brings it to you, hold it in front of his mouth. Don't tell him to fetch. Just wait. When he drops it, put it in his mouth and say fetch. After a while, when he brings it and drops it, he'll just drop it automatically. Then tell him to sit before you give him the treat, and then pick up the ball and throw it. So we're adding more and more structure. And then after he sits, make him sit and wait a second before you pick up the ball. Then eventually 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So he comes and drops the ball and sits there and says, "Are you going to pick it up or what? Can you pick it up? Let's go. Let's go. Are you going to pick it up?" Then when he's calm, you pick it up. So what we're doing is we're rewarding that calm behavior. So remember, when you're playing fetch, the first time do it in the house when he's really into it. Sit right here and just throw it towards your kitchen, and then count each number of fetches inside, so you know what his maximum number of fetches is. Because you have an unusual work schedule, I'd like you to be able to do it inside, because that way you can do it independent of what's going on outside. But figure out the maximum number of fetches before he's like, "You're crazy, I'm not doing it anymore." And use our treats, because you saw he really liked our treats. And then once you find out the inside number, you want to exercise about 50 to 75% of the number. So remember to fetch him about 50% of the number before you go for a walk, or before you put him out in the backyard, before you practice the exercise that's above in there. Just make sure he has 10 minutes to recover. So if you get him in a habit of burning that excess energy, again, it's going to be needed multiple times a day. He probably needs the exercise every 2 to 4 hours. So if you get up in the middle of the night and he's really bouncing off the walls, play fetch in here really quick. You could also get an iFetch, which is a machine lets him play fetch with himself, but I would think probably just do it yourself. And then I would get a chucker so that you could actually chuck and play fetch in your backyard. And I would also do the same thing. So sit in the same spot, stand in the same spot, and throw the fetch and count each fetch. And so, you know, outside it's probably going to be about maybe 2/3 the number of fetches you have to do inside, maybe even half because you've got more distance. So we want to find out the maximum number and then the right amount that you need to do multiple times a day. I'd also like you to get a snuffle mat and start feeding him out of his snuffle mat. That's equivalent to if you feed him twice a day, that's equivalent to maybe a walk and a half. You get one of the Omega Paw treat balls on Amazon and give him a snack in the middle of the day between that. Just make sure you put it up afterwards. So between the two of those, that's like equivalent to like 2 walks. So we get him 2 walks, we play fetch maybe 5 times a day. If we don't go for a walk, we play 3 times a day if he gets a walk. And on a walk, make sure you let him do the sniffs. Something else I forgot to mention, you can also think about getting him a doggy backpack. It looks like a harness that has 2 big pockets on the side. Put like a couple 2-liter bottles of soda or just bags of sand or whatever it is. Now he's got a job on the walk. It also makes the walk more efficient because he's carrying the extra weight. But again, exercising a dog before the walk is a great way to set them up for success. You can also Google scent games and just hide 5 treats around the house, and he's got to use his nose to find them. That's also physically draining. And so if you come up with the right cocktail or combination of these things that are reasonable for you to do on a regular basis, and after a while, like I'm in this workout routine now. If I don't get a workout in, I'm kind of cranky because I'm used to doing it. After a while, you'll kind of get into workflow. So if you spend 5 minutes playing fetch 3 times a day, that's only 15 minutes. He snuffle mats twice a day, the Omega Paw treat ball, and then the scent games once or twice a day. You're talking about less than a half an hour worth of whole activity all day long. You don't have to actually do all the activity with him. He's doing most of it and doing most of the work. But again, if he's naughty, exercise. If he comes up and he wants more pets or he's barking or whatever it is, getting the exercise remember, it's going to be an amplifier. More exercise will make it easier to fix the problems. Less exercise is going to amplify the problems that you do have. We also talked about rules, and the guardian here has already watched several of my videos, so she's already incorporated some of the rules. One of the rules I suggested was not allowed on this furniture. So I'd get those X mats for here. So if you're sitting here, he can't come up here. And that'll make the dog bed that he already likes to use. They just went to easier for him to use. Also might need to get an X mat for the throne over there, the guardian's sitting on it right now. Move the little thing away from the window there, or get a couple X mats and put them up there. You can get the electronic mat or the X mats and put them on that shelf, but go to Kinko's or Lowe's or Kinko's or Home Office Max, get that 3 feet tall paper and just measure it and put it on the inside of the window so he can't scratch it. And then you can replace your blinds, just pull the blinds up so they're just right above that little area, or whatever height you want, but just don't have them hanging down. So that way he goes to the windows and he barks. He doesn't see if his bark made the thing go away. And the more that happens, the less likely he's going to be to do that. And then we combine it with all the other rules and structure that we talked about. He's going to feel less and less that it's his job to correct or police the area. And okay, let me see what else. Other rules we talked about, you need to eat something first before you feed him. Make sure you eat 5 or more bites of something. And I'd like you to start delaying how long he has to wait for eating his food. So you put the food down, then you eat 5 or more bites. And then when he eats his first bite of food, come up with the name of a command word to eat. So you can say like feast or lasagna or chimichanga or fajitas or whatever your favorite dish is. So the guardians kind of smiled at chimichanga. So whatever it is, every time he takes a bite of food for 4 months, you say chimichanga. Well, after a while, chimichanga is my command word to eat the food off the snuffle mat. And you might feed him on the snuffle mat for the next year or two. And don't be afraid to use the snuffle mat as a little bit of a snack if you need to, or the Omega Paw treat ball. So make sure that the more you make him delay and wait for that permission to eat the food that's waiting right there. I'm practicing self-control. I'm practicing self-restraint. I'm practicing listening to my human's authority. So it really accomplishes 2 or 3 different things. And I wouldn't get too long. Get to the point where you could have the snuffle mat in there, have him sitting there waiting it, and you're watching TV for here, maybe up to 2, 3, up to 5 minutes maybe sometimes. Don't do it always 5 minutes. Maybe just like, watching a commercial break, chimichanga. And then maybe the next time it's 2 minutes, the next time it's 20 seconds. So he never quite knows how long. But again, he's practicing that self-restraint 2 or 3 times a day. I would use a different word for the Omega Paw treat ball. I say soccer, but you say any word you want to say. And say hunt or search or find it whenever you're doing the scent games. And just Google scent games because there's a lot of great opportunities out there. to practice that. Okay, other rules before he goes through the door. Make sure that you have him sit like you are now. If you go to my website, click on where it says dog training tips, and there's a section and there's a search box. Type in wait at door. And there's an exercise that I go through a couple of videos where I've shown people how to teach the dog to wait with the door wide open. So you can eventually open the door completely wide. He's just sitting there waiting. And then you say release or maybe adventure. And then that means that he can run out the door. So again, there's nothing blocking me other than my respect for my human's authority figure. And I'm practicing self-restraint and control, which is what he needs for all the problems that you have in the backyard. Okay, so look for other opportunities to practice. Like I said, you got to sit before at first you got to drop the ball for fetch. Then you got to sit, and then you got to sit and delay a little bit of time. Practicing open those doors and making him wait for that. Waiting for food and all sorts of different stuff. There's probably other opportunities when you get to if you're taking him somewhere in your car. Sit and open the door and stand outside your car and make him wait a minute or two before you can let him out. So the more opportunities you can help him practice self-control and self-restraint, the better he's going to be equipped to handle it in different situations. We also went over the focus exercise. Remember to practice that. I'd like you to really practice that. You're going to get this video the day after I worked with you. I'd really like you to get to that point where you're in that 15-second focus inside the house all over the place, but with nothing in the yard. The next stage, I'm going to change it from what I normally talk about. When there is a squirrel or rabbit out there, I would like you to practice inside with the door closed, but by the window, by the door. And if you won't listen, then move a little bit further away. You might have to be practicing like right inside this window or even here when the squirrel's there. But gradually you want to get closer and closer to that. But I would like you to practice that one, 12 treats, at least 5 times a day. So I want you to be I want you to accelerate that process. And then eventually get to the point where you can, once you can do it anywhere in the house, and you can be right by the window, and there could be a squirrel or the dog barking out there, and he's still able to look away and practice the focus for 15 seconds. Then do it out on your deck. And remember, go back to 1 second, maybe for 4 treats, 1 second, 2 seconds for 4 treats. You move faster, but within 2 days, 3 days max, I'd like you to be able to kind of be sitting in your grass or anywhere in your yard and have that 15-second focus when there are no squirrels or rabbits or anything else out there. And then the last stage is I'd like you to do it on walks. And it's a good time to do it is that walk in the middle of the night. And then so basically at first you're going to say focus. He looks up at you and 1-1. Don't stop. Make sure you keep on walking. But eventually you get to the point where you can say focus and he looks up at you and he's taking like about 10 or 12 steps because he's not looking where he's going. He's looking at this treat that's coming down very slowly. Once you get to that point, then you should have a verbal cue. And then if you're walking down the street and he sees another dog across the street, don't wait for him to lunge and bark because you waited too long. So as soon as you're walking down the street and he sees another dog, he'll lower his head and kind of start staring. Focus. Turns up and look at you. Then I would do a U-turn and turn around and walk the other way. So the idea is to use the focus to get him out of trouble. But most of us wait until the dog's too intense. Then it's way too late. Once he's reacting, he's not going to hear anything. The best thing to do at that point is just increase the distance. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. So I want you to be diligent about not petting him for no reason. If he's here and you catch yourself petting him, oh shoot, you shouldn't even be on the couch. So remember to have him those X mats. So basically, when you catch yourself, just stop and then tell him to sit or lie down. If he does what you want, then you pet him. If he doesn't get any attention. We're only going to say it once. Make sure you stop repeating command words. It's a very common mistake a lot of people make. So if he comes up and nudges me, I'm going to tell him to sit. If he sits within that 3-second window, I reach over, pet him under his chin, and I'm going to say the word sit and only the word sit. Remember, dogs hear the first word you say. And then I pet him as much or as little as I want. If I get done petting him and he comes and sits again, well, probably he's telling me that he needs a little exercise, so I might play a little fetch or do something else. Remember, leaders tell, followers ask. So if he tells you what to do, he nudges you, I'm not going to pet you, but I'm going to tell you to sit or lie down. Now, don't practice paw anymore. And if he does sit, then reach over, pet him and say sit, and then pet him as much or as little as you want. If he doesn't get any attention. After a while, he's going to start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. When he does, make sure you do recognize or reward that, or he'll go back to the other behavior. And even if you want to pet him, tell him to sit. If he's already sitting here, tell him to sit over here, or tell him to lie down. So he's got to do things to earn his pets. Remember, that'll increase his respect for you, it'll boost his self-esteem, and it helps him practice listening and basic obedience. Let me see. I also want you to celebrate the things that he wants. Remember, most of us train our dogs to do what we don't want. They bark, we correct them. They jump up and then break down the window, we correct them. They bark at the squirrel, we correct them. They come and sit in front of us, we ignore it. Lay down, they ignore it. Bring us a ball, they ignore it. So I'd like you to name all of your individual toys. Now, all the balls can be balls, all the bones can be bones, but name all the other toys so they have specific names. And every time he comes to you, pet him and say, come. Celebrate that come. That will help with your recall outside. Every time he comes and sits next to you, pet him and say sit. Every time he lays down, pet him and say crash or chill or whatever your word is. I say crash to mean lay down. When he lays on his side, I call that my dogs, I call that flop. And then if they go on their back, I call that pancake. So when he does that on his own, come up with those funny names. You can come up with whatever name you want, but the more the commands that you can teach him, the more ways you can redirect his attention, and also the more boosts of self-esteem and confidence he has. Okay. Let me see. So make sure you get in a habit. That's one of the easiest things you can do that will have the most profound impact if you get in a habit of doing it. Remember, it's going to take you 66 days to form a behavior pattern. So really be strict about this stuff for like 3 months. And for enforcing the rules, make sure you enforce the rules very strictly for 3 months. Hey, buddy. Come. Remember, the treat goes in the mouth first and he hears the command word after. When you're doing the focus exercise, don't say the command word until after the treat goes in the mouth. A couple housekeeping things. Remember, anything a dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. This includes excitement, fear, and stress. If he's stressed, lay your hand on him. They associate that touch with affection, but don't pet him. If he's barking, don't yell at him because any attention is validating. Just try to move. If he's barking at the door, if you have to, go put your back to the door and walk towards him and make him walk away. Remember that good attention, bad attention, same thing. So if you find yourself correcting or chastising him, that's rewarding and validating. Instead, find a different way to move him away or to redirect his attention to do something you like. Also remember, anything he does in your presence that you don't disagree with has your seal of approval. So not saying no is akin to saying yes. Okay, also try to only say the word once and try to only say it the same way. A lot of people say sit, or they'll do it like this. If you stop petting real quick. Rufus, come. Come. Those are 2 different command words. So say it however you want to say it, just say it consistently the same way. Now, I'd also, the other rules that we talked about, not be allowed in the kitchen when we're cooking, not be allowed on this carpet here when we're eating food. So remember to practice the exercise I showed you to keep him out of the kitchen, use the bacon and microwave it, and have him practice not going in the kitchen for even when you're not cooking. That's a great opportunity to practice when you're not cooking because you're not distracted. And remember to tell him to leave the house. So go grab a handful of these treats. You probably use lower value treats for this. Go in the kitchen and throw a treat right outside. He walks 3 feet outside the kitchen and he licks it up. You say the word out. Then let him come back to the kitchen, do it a second time. Then do it for this doorway, the doorway to your bedroom. All those, and then for this carpet right here, throw one out there, one out there, one out this direction. So you want to throw it all different directions. Now, if he starts chewing on his bed like he is now, that's an indication I need some exercise. So you would play a little bit of fetch with him. Fetch. Fetch. So remember, when he's naughty, it's not being naughty. He's just saying, I have too much energy right now. Either we can help him practice, or he can decide to chew on what he wants to. I promise you'll have a more expensive taste. And after he chews it, and there you go, he grabbed a bone. So say every time he grabs that, say why, because that's the letter Y, or whatever it is. But if you let him chew on his dog bed, eventually he might chew on your bed or the carpet or other things. And so we don't want in practice any of that behavior. So again, every time you name all your individual toys. So that one I would just call Y because it's the letter Y. So everybody does that. Just go and pet him right now and say Y. And so after a while, you say Y, and he goes and grabs the Y. And name all your other toys as well. I would recommend getting him a water buffalo horn, by the way. It'll probably outlast him. It's a very robust toy. It'll smell funky for about a week or 2. After that, it won't smell. But that's a really good thing for him to have to chew. When dogs are stressed, they like to chew on things. So that can be really beneficial. Let me think what else. I use the escalating consequences to disagree with them. I'm not going to go over them in this video, but if you forget what those are, please let me know. All right, well, let me get him back over here. Rufus! 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 This is my buddy Rufus. Come up here. Come up here one more time. One more time, Rufus. Yes. This is my buddy Rufus, and this is Rufus's road back to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.